Here's a story about how one Rabbi Meir Rafoils became a very major Chassid, follower of the first Rebbe of Chabad, how he became a Chassid. Rabbi Meir Rafoils, he was the like sort of the mayor of the Jewish community in Vilna, which Vilna was a big stronghold of Litvische Jews, Jews that were very opposed to the whole Chassidic movement, and he was the head of them. One of that was at the time when the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, who he was the one that we're celebrating. We're going to celebrate tonight his freedom from prison, as he was then the leader of the Chabad movement, and he was considered to be public enemy number one by the Litvische Jews. They even called themselves misnagdim, the opposers, because they were so consumed with being against the Rebbe of Chabad. And the reason was simply that they thought, I mean, his outlook and his whole view of what Judaism is and what the purpose of Judaism is was so drastically different from theirs that something like Yosef and his brothers, they thought that because Yosef was different than them, so he must be something bad because they were good. They couldn't understand that the Rebbe was actually trying to prepare the world for Mashiach. And by then, Mashiach was an idea, and of course, it was an essential idea in Judaism, but it wasn't really something that you could really, how do you say, point to a person and say, this is the Mashiach. And anyone who did, they treated as a possible successor to Shabbatai Tzvi, who Shabbatai Tzvi was a false Messiah, and he was very charismatic. And in fact, he had none of the qualifications of Mashiach, but he convinced a lot of people to even to leave Judaism. Anyway, so they were opposed to him. One night, a woman came to Rabbi Meir Rafael's house. It was a rainy night, terribly cold. 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard a knock on the door, and they opened it. There was standing this woman, a Jewish woman, with a sort of a torn up suitcase, and she was saying, "Is Rabbi Meir Rafael's here?" And they said, "Yes, come in, come in." They took her in, warmed her up, gave her something to eat. "What brings you here in the middle of the night?" She said, "Well, I was sent here by the Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman." They heard that. They figured it's obviously some sort of a cruel, practical joke, both on the woman and on Rabbi Meir Rafoils. And obviously, the Rebbe was getting revenge on his enemy, sending this poor woman. What was her problem? Her husband left her, and her husband abandoned Judaism, ran away with a non-Jewish woman, and now she couldn't find him. And the law is in Judaism that a woman, if she's married, she can never remarry. She can never remarry unless she can either prove that her husband passed away or she has a bill of divorce from her husband. And of course, this woman had neither. So he said that the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Rebbe Shneur Zalman, he sent me to you, and he said, "You can find her. You can find my husband." So he said, "How can I find your husband? I have no idea." On the other hand, the poor woman, he didn't want to just send her away. She was really in a desperate situation. So he said, "Okay, we'll arrange a room for you here, and we'll see what to do." So they arranged a room for her to stay, and she came to his house, knocking on his door like 5, 6 times a day, every day. "Did you find my husband? Did you find my husband?" So no one knew what to do, and it was the talk of the whole town how cruel this rabbi of Chabad, the Shneur Zalman, was, that he played this terrible trick on this woman and also on their rabbi. On the the custom was is that whenever they would bring prisoners from one place to another, the Russian government, and would go through Vilna, so they would stop in Vilna, and they would go to Rabbi Meir Rafoils. He was the head of the town, and sometimes one of the prisoners would be a Jew, and he would ask, that for maybe to put on tefillin or maybe to give a message to somebody. So they brought him over, and sure enough, a group of these prisoners came through the town, and they brought him. And he said, are any of you Jewish? And one of them said, yeah, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. He said, but I left my wife and I've left Judaism. And he said, really, what is your name? And he said his name. And that was the same name that this woman gave for her husband. And so he ran back to the woman and he said, can you come and see if this is your husband? He came, yes, it is. This is my husband. So he said, well, would you be willing to give her a divorce bill? He said, yes, I would. I feel bad about what I did. And what happened is I ran away from my wife, and I was with this non-Jewish woman, and she turned me over to the government. She said that I should go and get drafted into the army instead of her father. And I ran away from the army, and that's why they caught me. They caught me from running away from the army. And I'll give my wife a divorce bill. So immediately he ran and he brought two other rabbis, and they formed a judicial court, and he wrote a divorce bill, and he divorced the woman. He divorced her. Went back home, suddenly started thinking, 1 second, this really was the only possible way that this woman could get divorced. And the Rebbe of Chabad sent this woman to me. That's an amazing thing. Either it's an amazing coincidence, or maybe he did it by magic or something, but I mean, it's a divorce bill. It's not only good things came out of it. So that made a big impression on him. That sort of weakened his opposition to the first Rebbe of Chabad. Maybe things weren't as he thought. Well, at the same time, shortly thereafter, there were two Jews in Vilna that were falsely accused of stealing money from the government, from the Russian government. They had a big printing press, and someone accused them of embezzling money, whatever. And no lawyer wanted to take their case because the papers had been forged and there were witnesses, false witnesses. So they didn't know what to do. And one Shabbat, one of these accused men had a guest, and the guest noticed how worried this man was, and he told him his problem. He said, well, why didn't you go to the Rebbe of Chabad? So this man, the one that was accused, falsely accused, the Rebbe of Chabad, that's not, why did you do that? He's a holy man. He encourages people to do Torah and commandments. He said, well, that's not what I heard. I said, well, you mean you heard the wrong thing. It's not true, and it's your only chance. So he started thinking, listen, whether what I heard is true or not, I don't know, but about the Rebbe, but the fact is that he is my only chance. And if it's really like sorcery or idolatry or something, I can't go. But this man says that the Rebbe, those are all false charges. The Rebbe, and I know what it means to be accused falsely. I'm not. So he went to Reb Meir Rafoil's, one of these accused men from the printing press. Said, listen, my situation is like this. I've been to all the professors and I'm sorry, to all the lawyers. Nobody wants to take my case. The case is coming up in another 2 weeks. I don't know what to do. Someone suggested that I should go to, and please, I don't want to say his name, but the Rebbe of Chabad. What do you think? Is he really idolatry? Is it really So the Reb Meir Rafoil said he remembered this miracle that just happened with him, that he found this woman's husband. So he said, listen, I think that you should go. I think that you should go, but don't tell anybody I told you. And when you go, don't let anybody know you're going there, because this rabbi is really hated in our community. I said, you don't have to tell me. I know that he's hated, but it's your only chance. Go. So he and his friend, they dressed differently, and in the middle of the night, they crept out of the city, and they traveled to, I guess, Liazna. That's where the Rebbe was, Liazna. And when they got to Liadi, wherever the Rebbe was, they went to the Rebbe, and they waited in front of his office. They got an audience, and they went in, and they told the Rebbe their whole problem. And the Rebbe said, you're being falsely accused. Huh? He said, listen, there's a Gemara, a Talmud. It says in the Talmud that the kingship of heaven is like the kingship of earth. Malchuta de Shemayim kamo malchuta de Arad. Do you know why? And they said, Rebbe, we're being falsely accused of embezzling. Can you help us? Can you give us a blessing? Do you know why? And they said, no, we don't know why. He said, because God his name is written one way. It's written Yud and then Hey Vav Hey, but he's not called by that name. when we say that name, we say Aleph Dalid Nun Yud. We say Aleph Adonai. That's what we say. It's the same thing with the king. The king, the name of the king, the family is Romanov. But no one calls him King Romanov. They all call him by his first name. King Nikolai, Tsar Nikolai. He's not, what's written is not how he's called. The same thing with God. What's written is not how he's called. So they said, but what about our court case? And the Rebbe just looked down. So they went outside. They were crying. They didn't know what to do. Now they lost their last chance. The trial is coming up in another 2 weeks. They don't know what to do. Someone gave them an advice. There happens to be one minister in the Tsar's government, the minister of justice, and he's not an anti-Semite. If you can get him to talk to him, then maybe you've got a chance. And the only way you can talk to him is you have to, once a week, they made an investigation. They asked him, once a week he goes and he goes for a little walk in the king's garden, the royal gardens, beautiful gardens they have over there. And he goes for a walk, and maybe you can sneak into the garden and you can approach him. That's your only chance. And then you can plead your case. So they said, all right. They went to Petersburg, which is a big dangerous thing to do because they didn't have proper papers. And they bribed one of the guards and they got in late at night. They waited until the early morning when this minister of education was supposed to walk through, and then they were going to plead their case in front of them that they were innocent. And sure enough, there came the man. He was the minister was taking his stroll with the guard that they had bribed, the one that they had bribed, and they came out crawling on their hands and knees. Please, please have mercy, mercy, mercy. And the guard, the minister said, "What is this?" The guard said, "I don't know." Pulled out his sword. He said, "What do you want?" He said, "Please, our case is coming up. We're innocent. We're innocent." The minister said, "Oh, you probably think that I'm the minister of justice." They said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm not. I'm the minister of culture and education." So they started crying. "Oh, what's going to be now? We broke into the garden. Now they're going to get us for another thing. We'll be in." So tell me once again, what type of people are you? What is this? You have beards and we're Jews. She said, "You're Jews. Are you religious Jews?" He said, "Yes." So listen, stand up, brush yourselves off. He tells his guard, "Put your sword away." So listen, you know of a book called the Talmud? They said, "Yeah." So the king just asked me a question. He told me that he heard that in your Talmud is written that the kingship of heaven is like the kingship of earth. Can you explain that to me? What is it? He wants to know what it means. And I don't know. And I'm the minister of culture and I'm supposed to know all these things. Can you tell me? All of a sudden they remember that's what the Rebbe told us. They said, yes. It says just like the God in Judaism is written one way with 4 letters, and we don't read those letters. We call him a different name than what's written. The same thing, the Tsar, his name is Romanov, but no one calls him the name that's written. Everyone calls him Tsar Nikolai, is only a first name. They don't call him by his full name. So, oh, this is a good answer. This is a good answer. In other words, just like God has a name, but no one calls him by that name. Also, the Tsar has a name, but no one calls him that. Says, yes, listen, the Tsar is going to like that. He is going to like, I know the Tsar. And it saves me. I know, what's your name? When is the court case coming up? When is it coming up? He said, don't worry about it. I'll fix it up. And so it was. They canceled the case. There was no problem. Suddenly, these men realized that the first Rebbe of Chabad, he gave them exactly the right advice. Reb Meir Rafoils, he realized that the Rebbe had done 2 miracles to help Jews that had no connection with him whatsoever. And at that point, he decided that all of the slander that had been going about the Rebbe was wrong, and he became an ardent Chabad Chassid. Have a good day with Mashiach now.